very good evening and a warm welcome to the program. Thank you for joining us. Now, the 16 Days of Activism started on the 25th of November and ended on 10th December. But any day and every day is a great day to be an activist for what matters. So tonight in the studio on the show, we look back at the theme for this year, which was Orange is the Wild, Fund, Respond, Prevent, Collect, and we find out where Uganda stands in the fight. In the studio with me is the Executive Director for Action for Development, Ms. Regina Bafachi. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us.
You're welcome, and good evening, viewers.
These are very special times. I would, first of all, want to know how you've been this entire year, how you have managed to survive it and come out as you are, just to really catch up with you on how you're doing.
Thank you very much. Of course, these have been very tough times and very stressful. Of course, as an organization and as an individual, we've tried to do our best to make sure that we keep safe, and we are trying to keep so. However, the work that we do has been affected.
Yeah.
One, during the lockdown, of course, we had to halt a lot of work. And when the lockdown was lifted, that meant that we had to do a lot of fast tracking, what we had halted, and that has presented a lot of pressure on the people who had to change the mode of working, using a lot of online to make sure that we keep safe. But also what happened was that the people whom we were working with, especially the survivors of violence, were affected because they could not reach to us physically, nor could we support them as we would have loved. The other is that, of course, the donors or development partners, some of them were not understanding, and they were expecting us.
Most likely they were understanding, but their own.
They were expecting us to report as earlier planned. But of course, a lot of negotiations had to come in, and we told them, look, we can't do much. We either halt and then revive later, or maybe the partnership ends. And for some, of course, they understood and were able to reorganize, and hence the tension, the pressure I've been talking about. Yeah. We are ending the year. It's like we've just started. When you come to Akford, you can't believe everyone is on the toes, as if the year has just begun. It's
hard to imagine, to believe actually that it's December. Everybody needs a reminder. When you see a Christmas tree, you're thinking, how did we get here?
Exactly. So
for somebody who is interfacing with Akford, perhaps for the very first time, I don't know who that would be, but can you just briefly talk to us about Akford and the work that you do?
Thank you. Our organization, in full, is called Action for Development. We stand for promoting gender equality and equity, and our vision that people always challenge us about is seeing a just society where gender equality is a reality. We are a membership organization. We have both males and female members, but the majority are females. We started way back in 1985, and since then, we've really tried to make sure that we promote women's rights, we promote their empowerment and gender equality in Uganda. We run several programs in that regard. We have programs on leadership, especially promoting women's participation in politics and decision making. We do have women's empowerment, where we help them to start up village savings and loans associations. We help them to start social enterprises so that they are able to address social problems at the same time, earning an income. We have a youth mentoring program, and that is aimed at building a cadre of young people that promote gender equality, that appreciate issues of governance and civic engagement, at the same time being responsible citizens. Regarding promoting women's rights, we have a lot of work on prevention of gender-based violence, and this we have actually gone an extra mile to taking it to the refugee camps. We even have prevention of gender-based violence in the refugee camps. We do a lot of policy advocacy aimed at making sure that the laws we have that aim at addressing violence against women or gender-based violence are implemented. Because we've realized that as a country we have very good laws, but when it comes to implementing them, it's a challenge.
That sentence is usually one sentence. We have very good laws in Uganda, but when it comes to implementation...
Yes, and there is really proof to that when you go to the ground, sometimes you find, surprisingly, say, the law enforcement officers, whom you'd be expecting to know, for example, the Domestic Violence Act or the gender-based violence policy, they don't know. And yet you expect them to help the citizens access justice. Yeah.
Well, it seems like you have your work cut out for you. But then the other thing, I guess, that I wanted to say is when you speak about all of the things that your organization does, that's quite a scope of work.
Yes.
And now I can imagine just how brutal the COVID-19 pandemic, speaking in economic terms and other terms, has, affected you and other civil society organizations.
Yeah.
But taking the conversation back to the 16 days of activism, I would like to understand why these 16 days are important. Why these particular days? Why are they 16? What is the point of them?
The 16 days of activism are a very important period in the women's rights prevention, protection, and promotion. And the 16 days of activism is a global days that are celebrated everywhere in the world with the aim of reminding the citizens, the duty bearers, the states, and everybody that it is important to always think about the women and the girls' rights. Because sometimes what happens is that we do a lot of work, just like as I've mentioned.
Yes.
We do a lot of work.
That's a lot of work.
But the 16 days of activism are very important for reflection. Reflection about what it is that you have been doing. Where are the gaps? What needs to be re-emphasized? Because the 16 days of activism are also used for call of action to different actors, be it the citizens themselves or the duty bearers. But you also reflect on what has not gone well and what it is that you can do to address those gaps. But as, for example, we are soon going into Christmas.
Yes.
It is celebrated every year. But the excitement that goes with it,
I don't know if there's a lot of excitement.
I don't even know this time whether it is going to be. But just like Christmas time, we are always reminded that, look, this is what happened in humanity or human history. And therefore, for the 16 days of activism, we are also supposed to be reminded of what our responsibilities, our obligations are when it comes to prevention of violence against women and girls, when it comes to promotion of their rights, when it even comes to commitment of resources that are supposed to help, say, starting programs, making sure that those who experience violence actually access justice. And that whoever has been violating the women's rights or the girls' rights is called upon to reflect and maybe change, because we know that prevention of violence against women or gender-based violence starts with self.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But when you speak about all of that, I think it's important to get a sense of where we are in Uganda. And at the beginning, when you were speaking about how you were and how you've gone through this year, you spoke about some of the challenges that have come out, and we know that women and girls and everybody has been affected by COVID-19. So what is the state of gender-based violence in the country as we speak now, looking at what the year has been like for us?
We've had very many stories about girls who have who have had their rights violated, they are actually, majority of them who are out of school are likely not to go back because they have either been impregnated or they have been forced into early marriage. But others, because the situation has not been good in their homes, they have just decided to leave. They have not said that they have eloped, no, but just disappeared to look for survival. And where they are not any safer. They are having violence meted against them as either domestic workers or in any form of employment they find themselves in, because they are desperate, they have no option. As for the women who were previously employed, we all know that majority of them, their businesses were disrupted. Some were the only breadwinners, so they have gone back home. Their businesses have not picked up.
Yeah.
So what that means is that we have women whose economic rights have been violated, either by losing their formal employment because some employers have laid off.
Yeah, and also thinking about the responsibility of, you have more unpaid work now in this period.
Exactly,
yeah.
Exactly. And so when they don't have work, the formal work to do, that does not mean that they are not working.
Yeah.
Actually, their care work burden has increased, and that takes a toll on their lives.
Right.
We have had a lot of mental health.
That's true.
Because of the pressure that has been exerted on the women and and some men because of the impact of the pandemic.
Let's take a short break and we'll be right back. Welcome back. Thank you for staying with us. Our last segment was a bit rushed in closing because we thought we couldn't hear your sound. But I wanted to ask, looking at some of the figures that I have, between January and June, a total number of 2,707 cases of sexual and gender-based violence were reported to police every month.
Yes.
This is every month.
Yes.
So this is 2,700 is not just...
No, not over that period. It was every month.
When I asked you that question, you said something like, "Oh my God," and I was wondering why. But this I guess that's what
it means.
Do you think that we understand the depth of gender-based violence? The ordinary Ugandan who has not come to face to face with it. Do you think there's any understanding of what it is and what it means?
The challenge is that some do, while others don't. And the reason why some don't is that sometimes gender-based violence is normalized. Some don't actually believe that certain actions tantamount to violence against women or gender-based violence. And so they think it's normal. And then, of course, there is also reluctancy on the part of either the citizens and the people who are supposed to be supporting us to address issues of violence. And that, of course, leads to despair, frustration. People don't think they should even bother going to report.
Yeah.
Because they know they won't access justice. And then, of course, there is impunity. There's impunity, and the problem actually we are having is that the perpetrators of either violence against women or gender-based violence, to some extent, have not been put to understand or help to understand their actions, the magnitude of their actions on the lives of the women and the girls.
Yeah.
And so when somebody, say, beats, takes away the land that belongs to a woman, takes away her, even takes away her income in terms of salary and whatever, you say, no, this is somebody I married, and so I'm entitled to doing X, Y, Z.
What's yours is mine.
Yeah, exactly. So we
yeah.
still have social and gender norms that actually perpetuate violence against women and gender-based violence. So there is still a lot of work to be done. Like, for example, as an organization, we've taken it at a higher and lower level. Other than meeting people that occupy different offices, we also go to the grassroots, meet with the cultural leaders, discuss with the religious leaders, discuss with the opinion leaders, men and women in the communities, to help them understand, first of all, what rights of women and girls are,
yeah.
what violation of rights mean, and we jointly work together to see that that is changed. Because what promotes gender-based violence are negative social cultural practices.
That's true.
And so together we are like, what do you think would happen if, for example, this practice was changed? And we also know that a lot of violence actually happens in families.
When you started speaking about this, I got a bit of chills, because it took me to a story from somebody I know whose child has been molested,
Yes.
and you were speaking about how we normalize these things.
Yes, yes.
So because it's within the family setting, do you report? Do you not report?
Exactly.
Do you seek for justice? You're sort of torn.
You are torn.
Which sort of makes it become an issue where you can begin to say, we can make an exception. And things like that, I guess, are what normalize the violence that we are speaking about. But also, again, defining what
it entails.
What it entails, yes. What gender-based violence actually means. Is it just abuse? Is it sexual violence? Is it, what exactly are you talking about? I wanted to understand now the work that ACFOD is doing in this area of gender-based violence.
Okay, we do a lot of work. First of all, as an advocacy organization, we are leading a coalition that is advocating for the passing of the sexual offences bill. And this has been for a long time, since 2011. We are still advocating for that. It has not been passed, but we are hoping that maybe the 11th Parliament will pass it, because we have made good progress towards that. We are hoping. But besides that, we have also been part of the different coalitions, networks that advocate for the implementation of different gender-responsive laws. For example, the Domestic Violence Act, which we have actually made sure that different people understand it. We have popularized it. We have gone to the extent of translating it into different languages so that people can understand and be able so to use it. And also train different categories of people, including the law enforcement officers, religious and cultural leaders, to understand it and be able to use it, plus the local councils. We also have, as a country, we have a national gender-based violence policy that was passed in 2016. But when we did a study about it, we found actually many people didn't know about it. So what we have actually done is, again, just like the Domestic Violence Act, to popularize it, to also advocate for its implementation. Implementation means making sure that those who are supposed to oversee its implementation understand the laws, but also they lobby for resource allocation, because without resources you can't do much.
Yeah, absolutely.
We are also working with the religious leaders and cultural leaders to make sure that they champion the message on prevention of gender-based violence and violence against women, because we know these have a lot of influence. They have big constituencies. People listen to them. So these are people we're working with as champions of protection and promotion of women and girls' rights. We also work with families. As earlier mentioned, we know that a lot of socialization happens at home. Children learn and do what they see their parents or their guardians do. So for that matter, we have an approach where we work with, we identify families and work with couples within the different families. And the couples that we work with are those that have either been progressive in terms of promoting and protecting women and girls' rights, but also those that have been very violent. And those that have been violent, we help them to change. Those that are positive, we help them to continue helping others. And this is what we use, call model couple approach, an approach that has actually helped a lot in promoting women and children's rights. We do a lot of media work. We, other than appearing on the
You're
national...
here now.
I'm here now. Other than that, we have a lot of local community media campaign where we have the people who have worked within the community go to the local radios to deliver messages of hope, messages of change, but also telling people their stories of change. And there, of course, we know that helps in reaching out to many people. We also work with schools. Besides home, school also contributes to socializing children.
Except this year.
This year is alone.
I wanted to ask you, Regina, for a success story that helps us begin to feel what you feel. A success story from the work that you've been doing with your team that you think about and you say, our work is worth it. You're going to think about that?
No, I know it.
Okay,
I know it.
tell us.
I'm going to tell you, and the story is about the model couples that we have worked with. We have a couple that was in Kisoro, and that couple, Kisoro is in southwestern Uganda.
All right.
Yes. So this couple used to be a very, very violent one. The woman was always staying out whenever it came dark. Their house was almost falling on them. This woman was doing pet business, selling tomatoes and whatever. What the man used to do was just to sell, to go drink waraji or any local beer and come back, beat this woman, take away the little that she had. So our team in the field went to them, talked to them. The first time the team went to them, the man chased them. They were actually, he believed they were trying to spoil his wife.
I think that's the definition of gender equality that a lot of people have. Carry on.
So I can't believe, eventually, with the constant visits and the interactions between this couple with the other couples, those that were also violent, but those that had also were progressive, this couple was able to reflect and actually see that what they had been going through, especially the man doing to his wife, was wrong. And at one time, he confessed like he was saved. And he said, from today, I have stopped. One, to beat my wife, to take away her money. I've also stopped drinking. And we thought he was actually lying. Our team in the field was tasked to monitor what that man had pledged and confessed not to continue doing. Reports came to us that actually this man has changed. The other house that was almost collapsing, because when inside you would see the outside. In other words, the house was full of holes everywhere. One time, we had a meeting, a regional meeting in Nerira. As a motivation, I was like, let's invite this couple. They could not believe it. Moving from Kisoro to Lira, entering that bus for a long distance for the first time, sitting together, and of course, when we gave them their per diem, they were like, no, we are also going to sleep together, so that they could save. What they saved, they went back home, built a new house.
That's a lot of per diem that you people give.
Not really, not really. Not really, because you know now they were also saving together.
Yes.
They were able to build a house. This year, I went to prove that what they were actually telling me was true, and this was about a month ago. I was in Kisoro. I found them seated in front of their wonderful built house.
Thank you, Regina, for that positive story. Let's take a break right there and we'll be right back. Welcome back. We're coming to you from the Kampala Serena Conference Center, NTV Uganda studios, and we are speaking about the 16 days of activism today, which ended on 10th December. But it's activism is still a thing you carry on doing every single day. Regina, I want to understand when you think through all of the work that you do, what do you think are the reasons for the delayed elimination of gender-based violence in Uganda?
One of the reasons is, as earlier mentioned, the social and gender norms that make us not challenge what is happening around us. And that means that when we don't challenge, we don't speak up. So one of the reasons is that actually there is limited noise about what is happening. You can imagine sometimes a family might be having problems. Neighbors are aware. They don't report. It's until either one has been maimed, died, or something worse has happened that the neighbors will say, those people,
they're always fighting.
They're always fighting. What did you do about that? So, of course, the lack of proactiveness, lack of activism among the citizens to challenge what is going wrong around us is one of the reasons. The other is that we lack enough resources. Because if I went to police and I'm told that I've gone to report, and when I go to report, you are told to provide transport, what will happen? If I've been beaten, if my arm has been broken, obviously I will go back to the abusive husband or partner. And because there has not been anything done, obviously you continue. So there is frustration about the services, the inadequate services that we have, and those services, of course, have not helped us in addressing gender-based violence. And to me, that also points to lack of political will, that gender-based violence, violence against women, has not been given the priority it deserves. We've worked with different district authorities, and we found out that when you look at the plans, there is little or nothing that is allocated to addressing issues of violence or gender-based violence. But even you come to the national level, our national budget, how much is allocated to social services where gender-based violence could be addressed? In this country, we don't even have government-owned shelters. The shelters that we have are supported by civil society organizations and development partners. If they pull out, or if they pulled out, we wouldn't have any.
And some actually pulled out. Have we managed to get support?
Exactly. Exactly. And for me, that actually contributes to the delayed elimination or addressing violence against women. Of course, the other is that when we talk about gender-based violence, I've talked about normalizing it. People don't take it serious. Sometimes there isn't even enough evidence that people can use to say, look, this is what is actually happening. And I wanted to say that our ministry, Mother Ministry, the Ministry of Gender, Labor and Social Development, that is supposed to spearhead and oversee the implementation of those laws that are supposed to protect and promote women's rights, is poorly facilitated. And so is the Family and Protection Unit and Police. So basically, the inadequate resources, the lack of prioritizing issues of social services contributes to the delay of elimination of violence against women. But also, as a country, I think we need to have mechanisms at the local level that can, one, detect, help people to detect, report, and follow up cases.
I know that we have a reporting line for cases for children, 116.
Yes, but how many people use it?
Yeah,
Hey.
But even when you listen to the ministry speak about how many people use it, it's quite a number of people. So I'm imagining the ones who don't know about it,
exactly,
or the ones who are unable to
who are unable.
And that's just for children. So
yes, what about for the women?
Yeah.
So we lack those mechanisms that can really help us to report, follow up, and have either cases reported or even prevent.
Yeah.
Yeah.
When you think about the civil society organizations, what role do they play in ending gender-based violence in Uganda? Just very quickly as we,
of course, as civil society organizations, we do advocacy for the passing of laws and implementation, but we also do lobbying to make sure that cases are addressed. Okay. But the other is that I've just mentioned, civil society organizations provide counseling for the survivors of violence, but some have also established shelters, shelters for the people who have experienced violence. But also, we have done a lot of work in making sure that we establish some structures that help in reporting, in identifying, and also following up. The other role that civil society organization is doing research. We do a lot of research to find out, say, the magnitude of violence, and it is the research that we have that at least helps us to engage the government and other actors to know the magnitude of violence. But also, I don't want to say we make a lot of noise, but we do try.
You do make noise.
we do try to make sure that actually issues of gender-based violence and violence are made a priority in this country. And of course, we also make reports, both to government, but also to the international and national bodies where Uganda is a party, but also to make sure that the country reports with regard to the instruments that you have
Regina,
signed.
do you think that sometimes the message on gender-based violence is lost in translation with the way we hold the conversations about it, or because it just feels like a lot of people either do not understand it or they just really don't want to understand it because of the implications they think it might have, you know, on them?
What I think really happens is that some just choose not to. Because what we have really tried to do is to unpack. When I talk of gender-based violence, when I'm talking to the ordinary person, I won't call it gender-based violence. I will unpack it and say what it entails. I will talk about its consequences. I also talk about its impact on the lives of the woman, man, boy and girl, and the nation. So it's about attitude.
That's true.
The biggest challenge is that we are dealing with changing people's perceptions and attitudes towards women and girls' rights. So if someone has grown up seeing his mother being beaten, seeing his mother being denied access to property, her proceeds being taken away, most likely he will grow up and do that.
Doing the same thing.
So we are dealing with beliefs, attitudes, practices that people have grown up with.
Yeah.
And so it obviously, the change is a progress.
All right.
But we should not tire. Most importantly, need to speak up.
Absolutely. Regina, when you think about people like me, people take away the media, you know, just look at the individual, look at the, you know, the people behind the scenes here, the people you meet on the street, what is their role in all of this? In just one, you know, very quickly, if you can just tell me what we should do as individuals in the fight against gender-based violence.
One thing that we should do is to be keen in actually identifying the early signs of violence. Let's be responsive. Let's report. But also, let's reflect on our own actions. Because as Aria mentioned, it's some of the actions that we do, maybe sometimes unconsciously, that promote violence against women and girls. So let's be cautious about our actions. Let's be keen. And let's speak up. Speaking up is the most important action you can do to protect and promote women's and girls' rights.
Thank you very much, Regina Bafaki, for taking the time to speak with us on this very key conversation. I think every time you and I have a conversation, it takes us a while to wrap it up because I think we stand for the same things. But thank you for taking the time to join us, and we'd like to thank ACFOD for partnering with us for this particular episode of the show. Coming up is NTV Weekend Edition.